Most are afraid of unknown depths, skirting shores thinking world flat. I'm with the island girls in celebration of new religion. Nobody led me or said this way. I sailed alone on makeshift raft with wind as companion. Fate for deliverance, confidence enough to assess new disposition. Seekers of lost paradise may seem fools to those who never sought the other worlds. Welcome to Momentary Zen with Zen Garcia. Visit www.fallenangels.tv. You're listening to Revolution Radio.
And the stars shall withdraw their shining, and the Lord shall utter his voice before his army. For his camp is very great, for he is strong that executeth his word. For the day of the Lord is great and very terrible, and who can abide it? Welcome, friends. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Momentary Zen here on Revolution Radio. As always, I appreciate and thank all of you for taking the time to join me this evening. It will be a follow-up to the first two portions of what has been a series on the end times and the study of a new heaven and a new earth, the millennial reign, the harvest at the end of days, the great contest, the war in heaven, and the enmity between the seed lines here upon the earth. And it's the fullness of the story of the fall of humanity, intertwined collectively with the story of the coming of the Messiah, as well as the story of the second advent and the promise of salvation and eternal life through Christ. And so tonight will be a follow-up to that. I will share some portions of what is a prophecy concerning the end of days according to the Native Americans, Hopis, as well as to the Kolbrin Bible, which is a number of texts. It's sort of like the Lost Bible translation of the children of Japhet that was preserved in a Glastonbury Abbey for a very long time. It was sought after by many kings, and the abbey was even burned down by Longshakes, who was trying to get hold of this manuscript. It was preserved by the priests, ferried out with them. They were able to escape and the burning down of the abbey, and then it was shared amongst a few select families, and they were tasked with also preserving the manuscript. And in 2006, this ancient text came to light, and it was asked of these individuals and their families who were caretakers of the storyline and the narrative that is preserved within the contents of what are several portions. The two predominant being that which was preserved by the Egyptian priesthood and passed down of what is a parallel account of the Bible just from the other side, meaning as preserved by the Egyptian priesthood, which represents the pagan and the forces which had held Joseph and his generations in bondage for the 400 years of the time which would be when they were enslaved for that duration and for that long period of time until Moses, who would be a foreshadowing of the coming of the Messiah, that he would be sent to them in order to lead them out of that bondage and into what would become their own nation state and kingdom, later a kingdom because they demanded a king, but prior they had the Most High God as their monarch and wanted and demanded a human king like all the other nations. And so, which was part of why they fell away and why they were led into trouble. And so, as I said, Moses, like Abraham, the father of the Hebrews, he was a savior figure for the nation of Israel and led them to the promised land, but was not allowed to see it. Well, not allowed to enter upon it, but was allowed to glance on it from afar. And so this evening we're going to cover some of those teachings just to give you an idea, because so many of you still ask me with regard to what I think of what is related in the Kolbrin Bible as being the destroyer. And in my opinion, the destroyer is some kind of a celestial body or object, and that it is allowed to enter into this reality, this time space dimensionality, whenever the Most High God wants to bring upon the earth certain crisis or judgment or affect change in the manner that he has prophesied it in connection to this particular object called in Revelation wormwood, in my opinion. And so we're going to examine this, and then we're going to go into another text which I do not believe many of you have heard about, had chance to read or study, and it will give you an idea as to the prophecies which were laid out and written down for this generation. The other aspect of the Kolbrin Bible was preserved by the priest, the Celtic Druidic priesthood, which we know that there's always two factions, but that one was involved in blood sacrifice and witchcraft and the drinking of blood and cannibalism and things of that nature, which that's always the side which is perpetuated by the seed of the serpent, and that they, in worshiping their pagan deities, their fallen angelic fathers and mothers, they are tasked, taught, and led astray into worshiping the fallen ones in such manner. And that's what we see even perpetuated by the elites of today. And it's because they are the scion of the serpent, the children of perdition, the sons of Belial, that they involve themselves ongoing with such insanity, which seems to us just beyond bizarre or what we would consider to be normal human behavior, or even strange and eclectic behavior, that these particular beings are involved in some what is referenced as abomination. And so, just as in the days of early Israel, the Most High hated the things that the serpent seed were involved in, and the kind of worship that they instituted amongst the peoples and cultures which they led astray into involvement with them. And that often these pagan cultures, the reason um, they followed these evil and what seems to be evil practice is because they are indeed the children of the serpent. And so there was the two ways, and there has always been these two ways: the narrow path that leads to salvation through Christ, and then the broad path of destruction, that which um, most of the world is led astray to involving themselves with, as far as the idolatry, the false religions, the false worship that the serpent, the ancient dragon, has established through most mainstream religions as way to divert glory to himself. And so this is why in this world where he and his children rule, truth is little known and the kingdom little sought out. And so we will just be discussing some of these concepts. But, I just want to thank again all of you for taking the time to join me. Tomorrow evening, I will be doing a part 2 and a follow-up on the courses of the heavenly luminaries that I began expounding upon last week. But that some of that is also connected to what we are examining here as the fig tree generation and the end of days. All right, so I'm going to begin with what is the story of the blue and red star Kachina prophecy. And this is a story which was preserved and passed down through the native peoples, as far as the Hopi people, and that it was shared in the early 2000s, even in the late 1900s, 1990, somewhere thereabouts, in several different books speaking about Hopi prophecy. One specifically that I will be reading from is from a text called The Last Cry. And it's by an individual named Robert Ghost Wolf. As we go through these prophecies, you will see that it also speaks about and references what the Kolbrin Bible calls the Destroyer, which I will go into when expounding upon some of this information. But I want to start with this particular prophecy because the native peoples have also had interactions with what they call the star people, and that they have received insight from them about, even the end of days and what the end of this world would be like. And so, and the other thing that is interesting with regard to this prophecy, and also some of that which is preserved, for instance, in the Sumerian traditions, is that we see that what has been told to these individuals and these peoples, that it has a heliocentric slant to it. And for those of us that do understand biblical cosmology and that have been brought to the understanding that the Copernican heliocentric model is deception. It shows to us just how far back and how pervasive this deception, the foundations and the roots of it, have been laid amongst indigenous peoples. And so that's an interesting concept to examine when we consider the, especially for those that believe and that buy into and accept the Sumerian teachings as being authoritative, especially over that of the prophecies contained in the Bible. And the reason I say this is because the Bible is 100% prophetically accurate. And being accurate, it is in that way confirming witness that it is the inspired word of the Most High God. Whereas we do not see that confirmation coming from the other side of it, the pagan traditions. And so, that's what made me initially a believer in the Bible and the scriptures and the prophecies as passed down through the patriarchs of Adam and his bloodline. So, anyways, as we go through some of this, we'll see how there is connection to the heliocentric model, which again, many of us now know to be deception and propaganda put into place a very long time ago in order, in my opinion, to establish the premise for the coming of the ancient ones and the belief that the ancient aliens are the creators of humanity, which is also affirmed in some of these um, ancient traditions, even though, again, that is part of the strong delusion. And so it says, the story of the blue Kachina is a very old story, very old. I have been aware of the story of the blue Kachina since I was very young. I was told this story by grandfathers who are now between 80 and 108 years of age. Frank Waters also wrote about Sasquatsohu, the blue star Kachina, in the book of the Hopi. The story came from grandfather Dan, the oldest of the Hopi. Quote, it was told to me that first the blue Kachina would start to be seen at the dances and would make his appearance known to the children in the plaza during the night dance. This event would tell us that at the end times are very near. And then the blue star Kachina would physically appear in our heavens, which would mean that we were in the end times. Quote, in the final days, we will look up in our heavens and we will witness the return of the two brothers who helped create this world. In the birthing time, Poganghoya is the guardian of our North Pole, and his brother Palagangwahoya is the guardian of the South Pole. In the final days, the blue star Kachina will come to be with his nephews, and they will return the earth to its natural rotation, which is counterclockwise. And so again, the earth does not even move, but it is affirmed, um, that the earth used to rotate in the opposite direction. There's a passage from the Kolbrin Bible which says this, and it speaks about these particular celestial twins, which is interesting. And when I first found this particular passage, after read the Hopi prophecy, I knew that it was, affirming the same kind of thing. It says, the first sky monster was joined by another which swallowed the tail of the one going before. But the two could not be seen at once. The sky monster reigned and raged above earth, doing battle to possess it. But the many-bladed sword of God cut them in pieces, and their falling bodies enlarged the land and the sea. In this manner the first earth was destroyed by calamity. Descending from out of the skies, the vaults of heaven had opened to bring forth monsters more fearsome than any that ever haunted the uneasy dreams of men. And so here in this particular passage, it's referencing the first destruction of the earth, which is referenced in the Bible as when the earth became without form and void. And so it tells us that these particular heavenly objects had some connection to that particular calamity, and that, but that it will, it will also have a part to play in the end of days, according to the message of Scripture, anyways. The messages will be found written in the living stone through the sacred grains and even the waters. Um, this is speaking about crop circles. From the purifier will issue forth a great red light. All things will change in their manner of being. Every living thing will be offered the opportunity to change from the largest to the smallest. Those who return to the ways given to us in original teachings and live in a natural way of life will not be touched by the coming of the purifier. They will survive and build the new world. Only in the ancient teachings will the ability to understand the messages be found. It is important to understand that these messages will be found upon every living thing, even within our bodies, even within a drop of our blood. All life forms will receive the messages from the twins, those that fly, the plants, even rabbit, the rabbit. The appearance of the twins begins a period of 7 years. It will be our final opportunity to change our ways. Everything we experience is a matter of choice. Many will appear to have lost their souls in these final days. So intense will the nature of the changes be that those who are weak in spiritual awareness will go insane. For we are nothing without spirit. They will disappear, for they are just hollow vessels for anything to use. Life will be so bad in the cities that many will choose to leave this plane, some in whole groups. Only those who return to the values of the old ways will be able to find peace of mind. For in the earth we shall find relief from the madness that will be all around us. It will be a very hard time for women with children, for they will be shunned, and many of the children in these last times will be unnatural, some being from the stars, some from past worlds. Some will even be created by man in an unnatural manner and will be soulless. Many of people in this time will be empty in spirit. They will have no life force in their eyes. As we get close to the time of arrival, the purifier of the Purifier, there will be those who walk as ghosts through the cities, through canyons they will have constructed in their man-made mountains. Those that walk through these places will be very heavy in their walk. It will appear almost painful as they take each step, for they will be disconnected from their spirit and the earth. After the arrival of the twins, they will begin to vanish before your eyes like muck and smoke. Others will have great deformities both in the mind and upon their bodies. There will be those who would walk in the body that are not from this reality. For many of the gateways that once protected us will be opened, and there will be much confusion. Confusion between sexes, children, and their elders. Life will get very perverted, and there will be little social order in these times. Many will ask for the mountain themselves to fall upon them just to end their misery. Still others will appear as if untouched by what is occurring. The ones who remember the original teachings and have reconnected their hearts and spirit, those who remember who their mother and father is, the Pahana, who have left to live in the mountains and forests. When the Purifier comes, we will see him first as a small red star, which will come very close and sit in our heavens, watching us to see how well we have remembered the sacred teachings. This Purifier will show us many miraculous signs in our heavens. In this way, we will know that Creator is not a dream. Even those who do not feel their connection to Spirit will see the face of Creator across the sky. Things unseen will be felt very strongly. Many things will begin to occur that will not make sense, for reality will be shifting back in and out of the dream state. There will be many doorways to the lower world that will open at this time. Things long forgotten will come back to remind of our past creations. All living things will want to be present for this day when time ends. We will enter forever the cycle of the fifth world. We will receive many warnings allowing us to change our ways from below the earth as well as above. And then one morning, in a moment, we will all awaken to a red dawn. The sky will be the color of blood. Many things will then begin to happen that right now we are not sure of their exact nature, for much of reality will not be as it is now. There will be many strange beasts upon the earth in those days, some from the past and some that we have never seen. The nature of mankind will appear strange in these times. We walk between worlds and we will house many spirits, even within our own bodies. After a time, we will again walk with our brothers from the stars and rebuild this earth, but not until the Purifier has left his mark upon the universe. Nothing living will go untouched here or in the heavens. The way through this time, it is said, to be found in our hearts and reuniting with our spiritual self, getting simple and returning to living with and upon the earth and in harmony with her creatures, remembering that we are the caretakers the first keepers of the Spirit, our relatives from the stars, are coming home to see how well we have fared in our journey. A few things that I want to highlight here. First, that we see that, you know, a lot of people will believe that it's referencing the ancient aliens that's coming to help us to bring in a harmonious age. But I tend to believe that to be what will be the spiritual forces which accompany Yeshua, because the ancient aliens are linked to the Antichrist, and the Antichrist will, even though he promises to bring peace and harmony, will bring suffering and great havoc and chaos. And so it's part of the deception that the Space Brothers or these star beings, that they are benevolent, first off, when they demand blood sacrifice, or that they are the overseers or the benefactors of humanity, when the Bible shows us and reveals to us that they are not. And then there's also portions which speak about, the mountains coming down upon that the elites will want and ask for the mountains to come and upon them and hide them from the wrath of the Lamb. That this is also connected to and part of prophecy. And so we will see these kind of things also unfolding. But again, as far as whether it's Nibiru or the Destroyer or whatever, wormwood, um, this celestial body, this particular heavenly object, I do believe that there is some component and some kind of connection with wormwood and what is some type of heavenly object. But that this planet, if you want to call it that, is not Earth-like. There's no Earth-like bodies out there. The Earth is not a planet or a star or a luminary. It is the foundation for the heavens and the circle upon which the firmament has been established as impenetrable structure. And that this structure was put into place to imprison, I believe, the fallen ones, the rebel angels, and to keep them locked here for the judgment that is coming. But I will share with you some of what it speaks about in the Kolbrin Bible with regard to this particular object called the Destroyer. And as I said, because with the Sumerian cosmology, they affirm that this body has an orbital path of 3,600 years, and that it enters into our solar system once every, this particular period of time, every 3,600 years, that this particular object will enter into our solar system, and that it comes where the asteroid belt is said to be. Because according to the premise of the early formation of the so-called solar system, that that one of the moons of Nibiru smashed the planet that used to be where the asteroid belt is, and that this planet became the Earth, and that it was during that time that the Earth captured what is now our moon, or considered to be our moon. But again, these kind of things are just fairy tale, because the planets and the Earth are not in orbit around the sun. The sun does not even have any objects moving in orbit around it. All of the so-called planets and all of the other celestial luminaries, including the moon, all move in circle around Polaris. And anybody can affirm such for themselves. You can verify that according to the star trails, time-lapse photography taken over the course of an evening, everything moves in circle around Polaris, and Polaris is the one fixed star which has remained non-moving for thousands of years, and that this is the zodiac moves in circle around it, and all the constellations and all the stars, everything moves in circle around Polaris. And so once you are aware of that, and you see, like, for instance, the phenomena of the midnight sun, when the sun is closest to the North Pole and in the high Arctic, above the high Arctic, you can see it circling from east to west to north to east in revolution for many days at a time. And so it shows and confirms that the sun is moving in circle above the face of the earth, just as we see the sun and the moon and the other luminaries doing. All right. This is chapter 4 of the Kolbrin Bible on the Destroyer. It's from the Great Scroll. And I'll explain these things as we go onward, but it is declared in the Kolbrin Bible that this object has connection to not only the destruction of the First World Age, where the earth became without form and void, but also to the floods and to the destruction which was rendered in judgment against Atlantis. It speaks about that destruction as well. And it also speaks about the time of the Exodus and some of the destructions that took place there. And it is also said to have connection to what will be the end of days, the great and terrible day of the Lord, which we'll allude to and elaborate on more as we go through as well. It says, O sentinels of the universe, who watch for the destroyer, how long will your coming vigil last? O mortal men, who wait without understanding, where will you hide yourselves in the dread days of doom, when the heavens shall be torn apart, and the skies rent in twain, in the days when children will turn gray-headed. Also know that this is a prophecy. The children turning gray-headed, is a prophecy that is contained in, I think, Second Esdras. But it's a biblical prophecy as well, that it also affirms that when you see children turning gray-headed, that is also one of the biblical signs of the end of days. This is the thing which will be seen. This is the terror your eyes will behold. This is the form of destruction that will rush upon you. There will be the great body of fire, the glowing head with many mouths, and eyes ever changing. Terrible teeth will be seen in formless mouths, and a fearful dark belly will glow redly from fires inside. Even the most stout-hearted man will tremble and his bowels be loosened. For this is not a thing understandable to men. It will be a vast sky-spanning form, enwrapping earth, burning with many hues within wide open mouths. These will descend to sweep across the face of the land, engulfing all in the yawning jaws. The greatest warriors will charge against it in vain. The fangs will fall out, and lo, they are terror-inspiring things of cold, hardened water. Great boulders will be hurled down upon men, crushing them into red powder. As the great salt waters rise up in its train and roaring torrents pour towards the land, even the heroes among mortal men will be overcome with madness, as moths fly swiftly to their doom in the burning flame. So will these men rush to their own destruction. The flames going before will devour all the works of men. The waters following will sweep away whatever remains. The dew of death will fall softly as gray carpet over the cleared land. Men will cry out in their madness, "Oh, whatever being there is, save us from this tall form of terror. Save us from the gray dew of death." I want to, before I go on with the rest of the Kolbrin prophecies, I want to bring forth something in Revelation. I believe it's chapter 6. Actually, I think it is chapter 8. Let me share with you Revelation 8, because it's connected to what we're talking about. And so you'll see in the Kolbrin Bible a connection to what is spoken about in Revelation. And when he had opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. And I saw the 7 angels which stood before God, and to them were given 7 trumpets. And another angel came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer. And there was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all saints upon the golden altar, which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense which came with the prayers of the saints ascended up before God out of the angel's hand. And the angel took the censer and filled it with fire of the altar and cast it into the earth. And there were voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake. And the 7 angels which had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth, and the third part of the trees were burned up, and all green grass was burned up. So here, interesting, hail and fire mingled with blood, which it says in the Kolbrin and in other places that there is a red dust which accompanies this particular object, and that is part of the prophecy of the waters turning to blood. And the second angel sounded, and as it were a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, and the third part of the sea became blood. Same thing here. We have this great burning mountain cast into the sea, and you know, previously a third part of all the trees and all the green grass were burned up. We see at the end of days that part of the judgment cast upon the wicked is that the stars come crashing to the earth. And these stars are what set the earth ablaze. And it's part of the consequences which create a new heaven and a new earth for what will be the coming millennial reign. All right, I'm going to try to get through this portion before the break. And the name of the star is called wormwood, and the third part of the waters became wormwood. And many men died of the waters because they were made bitter. And the fourth angel sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten, and the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars, so as the third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. And I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the 3 angels, which are yet to sound. And so we can see that here we have a connection to what is referenced in the early part of the prophecies on the destroyer. Just a little bit more. Revelation 9, it says, And the 5th angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace. And the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them were given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their forehead. And so this supernatural, this locust army that is about to be released with the coming of this object and with its descent into the waters and the waters becoming bitter, a third of the grass in the seas, and all the beasts, even in the waters, are said that they shall die. I'm going to skip the part about the locust, but you can see here that this supernatural army, as it says in Joel chapter 2, that they would be given power for a certain time to hurt men, and that this angel that comes down, this star, that he was their king, and he is the angel of the bottomless pit. His Hebrew name is Abaddon, which means destruction, and in his Greek tongue, his name Apollyon, which Apollo is connected to the sun. Then after the release of this supernatural army, we have the four angels which were bound and prepared for a certain time and a certain destruction, that they would be loosed and that they would be part of the slaughter which would come upon those, again, not written into the books of life. And that all of these destructions are part of the judgment announced upon those that are not numbered with the elect. And it says, by these three was the third part of men killed, by the fire, by the smoke, and by the brimstone, which issued out of their mouths. For their power is in their mouth and in their tails, and for their tails were like unto serpents in their heads, and with them they do hurt. And the rest of the men which were not killed by these plagues, yet repented not of the works of their hands, that they should not worship devils and idols of gold and silver and brass and stone and of wood, which neither can see nor hear nor walk, neither repented they of their murders nor of their sorceries, nor of their fornication nor of their thefts. And you see what kind of people these are. They're exactly involved in what the seed of Cain is involved in. All right, we'll be right back for second hour.
Listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
All right, welcome back, everybody, for second hour. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Momentary Zen here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. And I do want to just let everybody know you can support the Platform for Truth that so many different hosts are utilizing on both Studios A and Studio B just by going to the freedomslips.com website and clicking on the donate button. That even for the price of going out one time and eating at a fast food restaurant, you can gain access to all the archives of all the different hosts and download their shows in MP3 form and listen to them, and find others that you might like actually listen to. I know a lot of you download the podcast so that you can hear the different broadcasts as you travel back into and working or jogging or whatever. That's a great use of your time, much better than listening to radio and being bombarded by commercials and advertisement and all of that. And so if you can, please do support the network and the platform that it provides individuals like myself to be able to share and teach and to cover so much that you might not otherwise find on any other broadcast, any other show. And so thank you in advance for doing so. All right, let me go back to chapter 5 of the Kolbrin Bible. This is the Scroll of Adepa. And this is part 3, and it is also specific to the Destroyer and this particular object, and its involvement and its inclusion with what is the judgment and the unfolding of the great and the terrible day of the Lord, when the wrath of God is poured out on the wicked and the wheat are gathered for preservation. The doom shape called the Destroyer in Egypt was seen in all the lands whereabouts. In color it was bright and fiery, in appearance changing and unstable. It twisted about itself like a coil, like water bubbling into a pool from an underground supply, and all men agree it was a most fearsome sight. It was not a great comet or a lucent star, being more like a fiery body of flame. Its movement on high were slow. Below it swirled in the manner of smoke, and it remained close to the sun, whose face it hid. There was a bloody redness about it which changed as it passed along its course. It caused death and destruction in its rising and setting. It swept the earth with gray cinder rain, and caused many plagues, hunger, and other evils. It bit the skin of men and beasts until they became mottled with sores. The earth was troubled and shook. The hills and mountains moved and rocked. The dark, smoke-filled heavens bowed over earth, and a great howl came to the ears of men, borne to them upon the wings of the wind. It was the cry of the Dark Lord, the Master of Dread. Thick clouds of fiery smoke passed before him, and there was an awful hail of hot stones and coals of fire. The doom shape thundered sharply in the heavens and shot out bright lightnings. The channels of water were turned back unto themselves when the land tilted, and great trees were tossed about and snapped like twigs. Then a voice like 10,000 trumpets was heard over the wilderness, and before its burning breath the flames parted. The whole of the land moved and mountains melted. The sky itself roared like 10,000 lions in agony, and bright arrows of blood sped back and forth across its face. Earth swelled up like bread upon the hearth. This was the aspect of the doom shape called the Destroyer, when it appeared in the days long gone by, in olden times. It is thus describing in the old record, few of which remain. It is said that when it appears in the heavens above, earth splits open from the heat like a nut roasted before the fire, and then flames shoot up through the surface and leap about like fiery fiends upon black blood. The moisture inside the land is all dried up. The pastures and cultivated places are consumed in flames, and they and all trees become white ashes. The doom shape is like a circling ball of flame, which scatters small fiery offspring in its train. It covers about a fifth part of the sky and sends writhing snake-like fingers down to earth. Before it, the sky appears frightened, and it breaks up and scatters away. Midday is no brighter than night. It spawns a host of terrible things. These are things said of the destroyer in the old records. Read them with a solemn heart, knowing that the doom shape has its appointed time and will return. It would be foolish to let them go unheeded. Now, men say such things are not destined for our days. May the great God above grant that this be so. But come the day surely will, and in accordance with its nature, man will be unprepared. And so, again, you can see that this particular object has heat, fire, brimstone, and burning associated to it, and that its appearance and its raining down these cinders and these flames and this breath of fire and this red dust, that again, it has part to play in what seems to be the signs that are cited to be indicative of the great and the terrible day of the Lord. And so, will the Most High God utilize such object as part of the prophecy that he has exclaimed within his word, specifically the Bible? Are we warned that this object has some kind of connection to what is described as the mountain burning of fire that is tossed into the sea? Wormwood, that object which burns up a third of the green grass and destroys a third of the trees, a third of the ships of the oceans are destroyed. I don't even know if I read that particular part of the scriptures. But these things are spoken of in great detail. And it says that there would be signs in the sun, the moon, the stars, upon the sea and upon the earth. And I also think that, where it says, and what we covered in the first show of this particular series, when I read from the Apocalypse of Thomas, where it spoke about how the heavens fled away from the face of him that cometh that bring destruction, and that these heavens rolled up like a scroll, and that the firmament was split asunder in order that heaven and the angels and the celestial hosts which accompany the return, the second advent of Christ, that they all have part to play in the heavens being split asunder. And so when you read more and more and more, and you study more and more about the end of days and about these things as is declared within Scripture, they absolutely come together in a manner that, when studied in parallel, as we have provided it in the third book of the Great Commission series, that particular trilogy on the end time apocalypses, we have all of these incredible stories which relate about the coming end times, what they will be like, how they will unfold, the particulars of those prophecies which have been written for our generation. And that Christ says, when you see the blooming of the fig tree, know that this is the generation which will see the fulfillment of all these things. And so, in my opinion, we are that generation and we are living in those times. It says, but in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God should be finished, as he hath declared to his servants the prophets. And so, all these things will be fulfilled. All right, let me go back to. Now, I'm going to share with you in the segment that we have left, in the portion that remains, a text called The Vision of Adaman, which it is the final book of, and because it is part of the medieval Irish Apocrypha, and it's a text which is found as part of that collection. It's the last text of what are those contained in the Great Commission 3. And it is specific to the end of days. But because it's not as ancient as many of the other manuscripts which are found in this particular book, for instance, well, just, it's not as ancient, and so it doesn't cover in specific what are related in certain texts like Second Esdras and the Apocalypse of Baruch, the Apocalypse of Thomas, the Apocalypse of Peter, those particular manuscripts, but it does fit in line with and shares even with the diversification of the heavens and the earth, with Sheol as the underworld, that these divisions represent the forces of light and darkness and good and evil. Christ, the Godhead, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, and Legion, Satan, the adversary, Lucifer, the fallen cherub, and the Antichrist, Apollyon, Abaddon, that this particular being, I believe, being the Antichrist, is much like what we see in the embodiment of Yeshua as the Son of God. That the Antichrist will be much like the son of perdition, the son of the devil, just like Cain and Nimrod and other Pharaoh, Nebuchadnezzar, those that ruled from Cain's line, that perpetuated evil, propagated it in their time. All right, so we'll share a little bit of this to finish out this show. The Vision of Adaman. Noble and wonderful is the Lord of the elements, and great and marvelous are his might and his power. For he calleth to himself in heaven the charitable and merciful, the meek and considerate. But he consigns and casts down to hell the impious and unprofitable host of the children of the curse. Now, the children of the curse, specifically, I believe them to be the children of the serpent, not just all of humanity. That the curse is not just Adam and Eve under the authority of death, but the mark that was placed upon Cain, and that his children are designated different from what are the children of promise, the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent, which again, and I say this so many times, and it's so very important, in my opinion, absolutely critical for understanding the scriptures and for making sense of the biblical narrative as it plays out between these two people groups. That without a doubt, there is a children of the devil here amongst us. And that if people don't recognize that, don't acknowledge that, you're really never going to make sense of the organized nature of evil as a crime syndicate, as a mafioso, as terrorist element living here on the earth with us, and that they are our cousins, our brothers, and our sisters, but they are wholly disposed to a different type of nature and behavior and way of being. That they are inherently evil. And that's the thing we don't understand. That most people that believe we are all the same, and that we all have aspirations of taking care of the children and providing them a safe environment so that they can come up and be nourished in positivity. I mean, just today there was a news story about, I think it was like 300 pedophile priests being protected by the Catholic Church and sent so that they receive protection and never have the condemnation and just rewards of their actions and behaviors ever come in consequence upon them. And can you imagine for the young children that were harmed by these particular people, to what degree the hurt and the trust has been destroyed? And it's because of these individuals that these innocent children would lose their hope and their faith in the Most High God and would blame Him for the behaviors and the wrong that were inflicted upon them through the authority of the church. And then speaking up and trying to have something done about it, they are protected. And the children shunned, and their parents and families and communities shunned in order to protect these parasites, these destroyers of innocence. And so we wonder why there's a hell. God tells us that it is for the murderers, the magicians, the whoremongers, the people involved in abomination in manner that we just cannot understand and that we can't accept, because most people, again, don't understand in teaching or embrace it, that there is a physical progeny of the devil here upon the earth, waging war against us, decimating the innocents, the slaughter of children even, and that they would sell out even their own family members for power, money, control, wealth. And they do daily. All right. For upon the blessed he bestows the hidden treasures and the manifold wages of heaven, while he inflicts a diversity of torments in many kinds upon the sons of death. Now there are multitudes of the saints and righteous ones, of the Lord of creation, and of the apostles and disciples of Jesus Christ, unto whom have been revealed the secrets and the mysteries of the heavenly kingdom, and the golden wages of the righteous, likewise the diverse pains of hell, with them that are set in the midst thereof. For unto the apostle Peter was shown the four-cornered vessel, let down from heaven with four cords to it, and they with sound as sweet as any music. Also the apostle Paul was caught up to heaven, and heard the ineffable words of the angels and the speech of them that dwell in heaven. Moreover, on the day of Mary's death, all the apostles were brought to look upon the pains and the miserable punishments of the unblessed. For the Lord commanded the angels of the west to open up the earth before the face of the apostles, that they might see and consider hell with all its torments, even as himself had told them long time before his passion. Finally, to Adaman Athin, the high scholar of the Western world, were revealed the things which are here recorded. For his soul departed from out of his body on the feast of John the Baptist, and was conveyed to the celestial realm where the heavenly angels are, and to hell with its rabble rout. For no sooner had the soul issued from out of the body than there appeared to it the angel that had been its guardian while in the flesh, and bore it away with him to view, firstly, the kingdom of heaven. I would add here that this vision of heaven and hell has been given and shown to many different prophets and patriarchs and beings over the course of history. And I believe that it has been done so in order for there to be multiple confirming witnesses as to the reality of there being a place for the righteous and a place for the wicked, ordained according to the consequences of our actions, and that it is our choices, our behaviors, our actions, and whether we accept Christ as Savior Messiah, that together with our works as far as how we treated the poor, the elderly, the widow, the people with disabilities, animals in need, that these things are considered when the weight of sin is measured. And that these stories are, repeated and preserved all throughout Scripture in different manner. That whereas most people do not know of this, even the vision of Adaman, there's also a story which we bring forth in the medieval Irish Apocrypha collection, the vision of Tyndale, who also was like Lazarus. He died and then was brought back and give an account of his experience in Sheol and how Christ redeemed him, how the angel led him out of its darkness and back into the light. All right, so let's continue. In fact, my son was just reading that to me earlier this afternoon, and it was a fascinating. Even though I had read it, it's interesting to hear him read it to me and to be able to tune in that way and to listen to it from somebody else's voice. So that was a beautiful thing. Now, the first land to which they come is the land of saints. A bright land of fair weather is that country. In it are diverse and wondrous companies clad in cassocks of white linen with hoods of radiant white upon their heads. The saints of the eastern world from a company apart in the east of the land of saints. The saints of the western world are to the west of the same land. The saints of the northern world and of the south in their great concourse are to the south and north, for everyone that is in the land of the saints may freely listen to the music and may contemplate the vault, wherein are the 9 classes of heaven after their rank and order. For one spell, then, the saints keep singing marvelous music in praise of God. For another, they are listening to the music of the heavenly host. For the saints have no other need than to listen to the music that they hear, and to contemplate the radiance that they see, and to satiate themselves with the fragrance that there is in that land. The wonderful Lord is face to face with them in the southeast, in a crystal veil between. To the south is a golden portico, and through it they discern the form and adumbration of the people of heaven. No veil, however, nor cloud is between the host of heaven and the host of the saints, but those are ever manifest and present unto these in a place that is over against them. A circle of fire surrounds this place, yet do they all pass in and out, and it does not scathe. It does no scathe to none. That circle of fire, in my opinion, it is the flaming sword guard. It is the cherubim, the 2 cherubim that sit on the mercy seat and that protect paradise as our former estate, and that they are to keep out humans until the end of days. That when Christ descends down out of the heavens and New Jerusalem and all the saints join him in accompaniment, the flaming cherubim, the sword guard, they will be removed, and humanity will be allowed to enter again into the place of the righteous. Continuing. Now the 12 apostles and Mary, the pure virgin, from a band apart about the mighty Lord. Next to the apostles are the patriarchs and the prophets and the disciples of Jesus. On the other side are holy virgins and Mary's right hand, and with no great space between, babes and striplings are about them on every side, and the bird choirs of the heavenly folk, making their minstrelsy. And amid these companies, bands of angels, guardians of the soul, do perpetual suit and service in the royal presence. No man is there in this present life who may describe those assemblies, or who may tell of the very manner of them. And the bands and companies which are in the land of the saints abide continually in even such great glory as aforesaid, until the great parliament of doom, when the righteous judge on the day of judgment shall dispose them in their salutations and abiding places, where they shall contemplate God's countenance, with no veil nor shadows between, through ages everlasting. But great and vast are the splendor and the radiance in the land of the saints, even as hath been said, more vast 1,000 times the splendor which is in the region of the heavenly host, about the Lord's own throne. This throne is fashioned like unto a canopied chair, and between it are 4 columns like unto a cantaloupe, like unto a canopied chair, and beneath it are 4 columns of precious stone. Though one should have no minstrelsy at all save the harmonious music of those 4 columns, yet would he have his fill of melody and delight. 3 stately birds are perched upon that chair in front of the king, their minds intent upon the Creator throughout all ages, for that is their vocation. They celebrate the 8 canonical hours, praising and adoring the Lord, and the archangels accompany them. For the birds and the archangels lead the music, and then the heavenly hosts with the saints and virgins make response. Over the head of the glorious one that sitteth upon the royal throne is a great arch, like unto a wrought helmet or a royal diadem, and the eye which should behold it would forthwith melt away. The 3 circles are round about it, forthwith melt away. 3 circles are round about it, separating it from the host, and by no explanation may the nature of them be known. 6,000 thousands in guise of horses and of birds surround the fiery chair, which still burns on without end or term. Now to describe the mighty Lord that is upon that throne is not for any unless himself should do so, or should so direct the heavenly dignitaries. For none could tell of his vehemence and might, his glow and splendor, his brightness and loveliness, his liberality and steadfastness, nor of the multitude of his angels and archangels which chant their songs to him. His messengers keep going to and from him ever and anon with brief messages to each assemblage, telling to the one host of his mildness and mercy, and to the other of his sternness and harshness. Whoso should stand facing about him east, west, south, and north would behold on each side of him a majestic countenance, 7 times as radiant as the sun. No human form thereto with head or foot may be discerned, but a fiery mass burning on forever, while one and all are filled with awe and trembling before him. Heaven and earth are filled full with the filled full with the light of him, and a radiance as of a royal star encircles him. 3,000 different songs are chanted by each several choir about him, and sweeter than all the varied music of the world is each individual song of them. Furthermore, in this wise is the fashion of that city wherein the throne is set. 7 crystal walls of various hue surround it, each wall higher than the wall that is before it. The floor, moreover, and the lowest base of that city is of fair crystal. Is that not interesting? Because it's exactly what John says of the throne that it sits upon a sea of glass like unto crystal. That Ezekiel, he describes the throne sitting upon a sapphire stone, or what seems to be a paved work of sapphire, and that it is also a sea of glass like unto crystal. So, very interesting, because the allusions all throughout Scripture are the same. That the floor, the base of that city, is of fair crystal, and that's the top of the vaulted dome of the earth, and is made of this impenetrable crystalline quartz-like crystal. It's a crystalline structure. Is of fair crystal with the sun's countenance upon it, shot with blue and purple and green and every hue beside. And so, it says here the sun's countenance is upon it. It's because the sun is circling beneath it and is contained within what is called the firmament. And the firmament is the floor for the heavenly temple, and the throne room that is this sea of glass like unto crystal stretched out before it. And so, it completely makes sense once you understand that God sits upon the circle of the earth, that he watches from where Polaris is established. And that's why all the celestial hosts move in circle around him. They are all in worship, that the angelic choir, the celestial hosts, all the stars, the wandering stars, the planets, all the celestial hosts, all the luminaries, they all are singing perpetually to him and bowing to his majesty as the center of creation. God says, in the scriptures, it says that God, if he were to turn his face from his creation, that everything would die, disintegrate. All right, continuing. A gentle folk, most mild, most kindly, lacking in no good quality, are they that dwell within that city. For none come there, and none abide there ever, save holy youths and pilgrims zealous for God. But as for their array and ordinance, hard is it to understand how it is contrived. For none turns back nor side to other, but the unspeakable power of God has set and keeps them face to face in ranks, and lofty coronals all round the throne, circling it in brightness and bliss, their faces all towards God. There is a chancel rail of silver between each two choirs, cunningly wrought upon with red gold and silver, and choice rows of precious stones variegated with diverse gems. And against that lattice are seats and canopies of carbuncle. Between every two chief companies are three precious stones, softly vocal with sweet melody, and the upper halves of them are lightened lamps. 7,000 angels, as it were, great candles, shine and illuminate that city round about. 7,000 others in the midst thereof are aflame forever throughout the royal city. The men of all the world, if gathered into one place, many as they are, would derive sustenance enough from the sweet savor of any one of those candles. Now, such of the world's inhabitants as attain not to that city, after their life is spent, and to whom a dwelling place therein is allotted after the words of doom shall have been spoken, find a restless and unstable habitation until the coming of judgment on heights and hilltops and in marshy places. Even so fare those hordes and companies with the guardian angel of every soul in their midst, serving and tending them. In the main doorway of the city they are confronted by a veil of fire and a veil of ice, smitting perpetually one against the other. The noise and din of these veils as they clash together are heard throughout the world, and the seed of Adam, should they hear that din, would be seized thereat with trembling and intolerable dismay. Faint and dazed are the wicked at that din, howbeit on the side of the heavenly host naught is heard of that rude discord, save a very little only, and that sweeter than any music. Awful is that city, and wonderful to describe, for a little out of much is that which we have told concerning its various orders, and the wonders of it. Seldom indeed may a spirit, after its converse and cohabitation with the body in slumber and repose, in freedom and luxury, win its way to the throne of the Creator, unguided of the angels, for hard of essay are the seven heavens, nor is any one of them easier than the rest. 6 guarded doors confront all those of mortal races who reach the kingdom. There sits a porter and a warder of the heavenly host, keeping guard over each door. At the door of that heaven which is nearest, on the hither side, sits the archangel Michael, and with him 2 youths, with iron rods in their laps, to scourge and smite the sinners as they pass through this, the first grief and torment of the path they have to tread. At the door of the next heaven, the archangel Ariel is warder, and with him 2 youths with fiery scourges in their hands, wherewith they scourge the wicked. Across the face and eyes a river of fired surface, an ever-burning flame lies before that door. Abercetus is the angel's name who keeps watch over that river, and purges the souls of the righteous and washes them in the stream, according to the amount of guilt that cleaves to them, until they become pure and as shining as is the radiance of the stars. Hard by is a pleasant spring, flowery and fragrant, to cleanse and solace the souls of the righteous, though it annoys and scalds the souls of the guilty, and does away not from them, but it is increase of pain and torment that comes upon them there. Sinners arise from out of it in grief and immeasurable sadness, but the righteous proceed with joy and great delight to the door of the third heaven. Above this, a fiery furnace keeps burning, its flame reaching a height of 12,000 cubits. Through it the righteous pass in the twinkling of an eye, but the souls of sinners are baked and scourged therein for 12 years, and then their guardian angel conveys them to the fourth door. About the entrance of the door of the fourth heaven is a fiery stream like the foregoing. It is surrounded by a wall of fire in breadth 12,000 measures, cubits, through which the souls of the righteous pass as though it were not there, while the souls of the sinful tarry therein amid pain and tribulation, for another 12 years, until their guardian angel bears them to the door of the fifth heaven. In that place is a fiery river which is unlike all other rivers, for in the midst of it is a strange kind of whirlpool, wherein the souls of the wicked keep turning round and round, and there they abide for the space of 16 years. The righteous, however, win through it straight way, without any hindrance. So soon as the due time cometh for the sinners to be released thereout, the angel strikes the waters with a rod, hard as though it were of stone, and uplift the spirits with the end of that rod, and then Michael them up to the door of the sixth heaven. But no pain, no torment is meted out to the spirits at that door, but there they are illumined with the luster and the brilliancy of precious stones. And then Michael cometh to the angel of the Trinity, and one on either side they usher the soul into the presence of God. Infinite and beyond all telling is the welcome wherewith the Lord and the heavenly host then receive the soul, if he be a pure and righteous soul. If, however, he be an unrighteous and unprofitable soul, harsh and ungentle is the reception of him by the mighty Lord. For he saith to the heavenly angels, Take, O heavenly angels, this unprofitable soul, and deliver him into the hand of Lucifer, that he may plunge him and utterly extinguish him in hell's profound, through ages everlasting. Thereupon that wretched soul is parted fearfully, sternly, awfully from sight of the heavenly kingdom and of God's countenance. And then utters he a groan, heavier than any groan, as he comes into the devil's presence, after beholding the bliss of the kingdom of heaven. He is then deprived of the guidance of the archangels, in whose company he had come into heaven. 12 fiery dragons swallow up every spirit, one after the other, until the lowest dragon lands him in the devil's maw. There doth he experience the consummation of all evil, in the devil's own presence, throughout all ages. After this, his guardian angel had revealed to Adam in spirit these visions of the heavenly kingdom and of the first progress of every soul after parting from its body. He brought him to visit the nethermost hell with all its pains and its crosses and its torments. Now the first region whereunto he came was a land burnt black, waste, and scorched, but with no punishment at all therein. A glen filled with fire was on the further side of it, huge the flame of it extending beyond the margin of either hand. Black its base, red the middle and the upper part thereof. 8 serpents were in it with eyes like coals of fire. An enormous... Oh, wow. We're already to the end. All right, God bless all. Until next week, shalom.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.